is the author, executive coach, keynote speaker, facilitator, and trainer who has had the pleasure of working closely with senior leaders for more than 25 years. She is very insightful and has a great talent for helping others discover their natural gifts and talents, which often results in authentic leadership and resilience. As a certified social and emotional intelligence coach, Cathy has distinguished herself by her ability to create a place of safety for her readers and clients to explore and define their identity as a leader as they walk through the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence. Cathy has coached hundreds of executives, C-suites, and has trained thousands on a national and international level with consistent passion and enthusiasm. She has written her first book entitled, Shh, Just Listen. Great Things Happen in the Silence, which is an emotional intelligence workbook that actively engages the reader as they walk through the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence, whether serving as executive coach, trainer, or business consultant. Cathy's ultimate passion is found in creating the space for her clients to come face to face with themselves and empowering them to create a life of authentic leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm applause for our master coach, Cathy Mott. Welcome,
Thank
Cathy.
you. Thank you. Thank you. I am so excited to be here. Hello, good afternoon, my fellow coaches. And we are here to talk about something that is dear to my heart, and that is emotional intelligence. It's actually my passion because I believe that our growth process and becoming the best version of ourselves is anchored in our emotional intelligence. So without further ado, I am going to talk to you guys today about how emotional intelligence is the key to masterful coaching. So a lot of times I hear people, they will ask me, oh, what do I need to do to get my MCC? What's next? How do I do this? How do I do that? And what I have noticed along the journey of my journey to MCC, I often think about when we are starting off at ACC, we oftentimes will coach and we think about the process. Then when we make it to our PCC, we do the process. By the time you get to your MCC, you are the process. So you're becoming that masterful coach along the way. It's not about the things you do at that level. It is the person that you are, the person you've become. And so I'm going to share how emotional intelligence will help you to get to that space where you can just be and be masterful in the coaching space. So that's what we're going to discover today. Questions are welcomed. We are also going to do some work in the breakout room. It's very interactive. So when I talk to you, please talk back. And we're going to have a great time together. So emotional intelligence is the key to so many different things when we think about being successful in any role. Emotional intelligence is the key. Oftentimes, it's what's missing for great leadership, but also for great coaches as well. So it's really key, and consistently working to improve our emotional intelligence. So when we think about EI, there's 4 quadrants. There's self-awareness, self-management, awareness of others, and then managing the social setting that you're in. And so when you think about coaching, coaching is definitely the social setting that you're in. And as a coach, it's important that you're able to manage that as well. Type in the chat box, of these 4 quadrants, which one do you think is most important as a coach? Type in the chat box. Of these 4 quadrants, which one do you think is most important? Okay, I see a lot of self-awareness, self-management. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. So actually it's the self-awareness piece. Because if I'm not aware, I don't have anything to manage. So if I'm not aware of what's going on with me, then I don't have anything to manage. And if you notice the way the quadrants fall, the self-awareness and the self-management piece, it's like you got to manage and lead yourself first before you can do it for others. So once you've mastered those two, the self-awareness, self-management, then you become aware of what's going on with others. You become aware of others, and then you're able to make a decision on how to manage the social setting. So great work, you guys. Thank you for that. EQ is 4 times more important in determining the success of an individual than IQ. So that emotional intelligence piece, it's been said in corporate America that EQ will, let's see, IQ will get you hired, but EQ will get you promoted, because it's all about your people skills and being able to manage yourself. It's huge. Think about, going to school to become a coach and learning how to sit in the silence. You'd ask that question, and then you'd have to sit. Type in the chat box, what was it like for you when you first went to school for coaching? You put that powerful question out there, and then you'd have to sit. Type in the chat box, what was that like for you? It was terrifying in the beginning, absolutely. Painful, yes. Very uncomfortable, yes. Uncomfortable at first, out of my comfort zone, yes. And so in that moment, you were managing yourself. You were managing yourself in a different space. And the majority of people who walk the earth are very uncomfortable with silence. So our coaches, as coaches, we have a great superpower, if you will, because we're comfortable in that space. Heather says it's almost impossible. Yeah, it's very difficult. But part of emotional intelligence, enhancing your emotional intelligence and practicing as a coach, it becomes the greatest gift that we give to our clients. One of the greatest gifts. So thank you for that. So let's talk about emotional intelligence. This is the textbook definition, okay? But I often explain it this way. Emotional intelligence means having an emotion and you're able to name it in the moment. You're also able to validate it, manage it, decide what do I want to do with this emotion? And then be aware of what's going on with others, and then manage the social setting that you're in. A lot of times I'll use the example of road rage. So you're driving down the street, someone cuts you off, and all of a sudden, you feel the emotion of anger, okay? So as a coach, we know anger means someone has crossed the boundary. So Cathy, oh my goodness, I'm so angry. The validation. You have every right to be angry. Someone has crossed your boundaries and endangered your life. Now, what do you want to do with the emotion, Cathy? Do I want to speed up and cut him off? Or do you want to take a breath and just let it go? I typically will take a deep breath and let it go. That's how I manage the social setting that I'm in. So that's emotional intelligence. It's being able to have an emotion in the moment, name it, validate it, manage it, and manage the social setting that you're in. The importance of validating an emotion is it lessens the intensity. When we're angry, or any other emotion that we might be feeling, but when we're angry and it's validated, you have every reason to feel that way, Cathy. It lessens the intensity of the emotion. Then from there, you're able to make a decision on how you want to handle it. That's the self-management piece. So I want you guys to think about, maybe you're having a conversation with someone, excuse me, and you're telling them about a situation that just happened to you, and they say, "Are you sure it happened like that?" And you go, "Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. No, it didn't happen like that. Yes, it did. Let me tell you again." You tell the story again because what you're really looking for is the validation. So when you're able to validate your own emotions, it gives you greater self-management and self-control. So we can even take this into the coaching space. We think about being in the coaching space, and let's say your coachee, your client is sharing something with you, and you've lived the exact same experience. What do we want to do? Initially, before we heard it over and over again, no war stories. It's not about you, but you want to tell that story. And you're having a conversation in your head saying, it's not about you. This is their space. That's being able to manage, that's self-management, that's having the awareness. Now, if we want to go a little deeper, and you know it's a war story, and maybe in the beginning you slipped up and told the war story, we go a little deeper and say, what drove me to tell the story anyway? Is it my ego that needs a little more attention outside of the coaching space? And then I'm going to listen to you and pay attention to you outside of the coaching space. So when we think about emotional intelligence, when we exercise it on a regular basis, it really does help us to become masterful coaches, because we have such great awareness of what's going on with ourselves. And we also get in the habit of listening to ourselves, listening for our particular needs, so that when we step into the coaching space, we can be there, fully present for the good of our client. Now, what I want you guys to do, I'm going to give you a minute or so, 30 seconds or so. If you could grab a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. Grab a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. So studies show that only 36% of people tested can accurately identify their emotions as they happen. So that's 1 out of 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys an opportunity. I'm going to put 90 seconds on my clock. And what I want you to do on the piece of paper that I asked you to grab is, I want you guys to write down as many emotions as you can think of in 90 seconds. And the timer starts now. Thirty seconds left. Time. Okay. Now, total the number of emotions you were able to write down, and then type that number in the chat box for me. 18, 16, 20, 15, 16, 18, 11, 7, 10, 13, 17, 12. 17, 8. All right. Great job, you guys. I will share with you when I did this activity in different industries. In the automotive industry, they're able to typically name anywhere from 4 to 6 emotions. When I do it in healthcare, they're able to name anywhere from 15 to 17 emotions. I had the privilege of working with a large group of social workers, and they were anywhere from 27 to 30 emotions, because it's what they do. Studies show that a healthy emotional vocabulary is anywhere from 30 to 40 words to identify how you're feeling. Now, does anyone want to take a guess at how many emotions there are that a human can experience? How many emotions? You can just take a guess, type it in the chat box. How many emotions do you think there are? 250. Thank you, Jimmy. 150, 300, hundreds. Emotions change from culture to culture. That is true. 150. Okay. I will share with you guys. Would love to get the source of the study. Okay, I'll share that with you. Depends on if you're French. 300. All right, here you go. There's actually over 34,000 emotions. There's over 34,000 emotions. And so the larger our emotional vocabulary is, the better off we're able to manage our emotions. And yes, language has a lot to do with it. That is true. I also will share that this is something I use with my clients, this wheel of emotions. And let me share the value of this wheel. So I'm coaching a chief nursing officer, and she is having difficulty with her CEO. Okay. And so she's talking about him. She said he never turns off his camera. And I said, well, what do you want to do about that? He never turns on his camera. So I said, well, what do you want to do about that? And she says, I don't know. I'd like him to turn it on, but I don't want to say anything. I said, so sounds like I'm hearing or sensing fear. She goes, yeah, I'm afraid. Yeah. So I pull up this wheel and I ask her, I said, how do you feel when you're in his presence? And she says, I feel inadequate and worthless. I said, okay. What do you want to do with those emotions? She says, inadequate. I'm going to toss that one out of the window. She said, because I'm great at my job. I know my work. She said, worthless. She said, I got to think about this one because I wonder if it has to do with the relationship with my dad and how he used to make me feel. She said, so give me a minute to think about this one. I said, okay. But now she had an opportunity to narrow down and name the emotions that she was feeling, which gives her more power on what she'd like to do with them and how she would like to manage herself in that space. So I frequently will pull this up with my clients and just share what resonates with you. And from there, we go to, of course, more powerful questions. But the larger the vocabulary the better we're able to manage the emotions, because we can name them. And then we empower ourselves by asking, what do you want to do with that emotion? And so if we do that for ourselves, it becomes second nature to do it with our clients. So remember, talking about being a masterful coach, it becomes who you are. So that when you step in that space, that's just who you are. The way you get to that space is you do this for yourself. All right. So let's talk about the 26 competencies that fall under emotional intelligence. So, of course, there's the self-awareness piece, where you are emotionally aware of what's going on with yourself. And it's also an accurate self-assessment, because how many times have you worked with individuals and they see themselves somewhat this way, and everyone else perceives them this way? So it's not just having self-awareness, but having also an accurate self-assessment. And then recognizing that you have personal power. So a lot of people give their personal power away. And you'll notice this in a coaching session. Your client may be saying, well, they never allow me to do this. And they always do this to me. So you know in that moment, just by listening, that they have given their personal power away. So a question could be, if you were to seize your personal power, how could this situation be different? So it's really understanding the emotional intelligence piece of it, and helping individuals to recognize that they have personal power, and even using your personal power appropriately in the coaching space. And then there's the self-management piece. Okay. So, and you guys can unmute yourselves and speak out. So when we look at the self-management piece, which competencies do you think would really help you in the coaching space to become a great and masterful coach? When we look at self-management, you can just unmute yourself and speak out.
Intentionality.
Yes, absolutely. And in what way? Who was that responded? I can't see.
It was Sue O'Connor.
Okay,
Here.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say it's like in the coaching environment, it's kind of staying on track and being intentional about what you're thinking and where things are going, being intentional listening, right? Like, so there's a lot of different aspects to that for me.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you, Sue. Anyone else?
I think another one would be stress management, particularly if something our client is saying, right, can trigger something within us. So we want to be able to manage those emotions and not come across responsive.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else?
I think for me, it would be integrity.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. So those are all great. Anyone else?
For me, it would be intentionality.
Okay, intentionality. Yep, absolutely. All right, awesome, you guys. Awesome. And so also even thinking about personal agility, your ability to, so I will share this story with you. I had a client, and this was around the time of George Floyd. And this particular, it was a CEO, and the organization required all of their leaders to read White Fragility. And so I'm in the coaching session with the CEO, and he said to me, I really don't understand why we have to do this. You know, slavery was 400 years ago. Black people have overcome, and I just feel like, why do we have to do this? So imagine how I'm feeling in the moment, managing my emotions, but I really needed personal agility. Not only to manage the emotion, but to be able to shift and eventually continue the coaching session, but come back to it and follow up at the end about his comment and how I was impacted as a Black woman. So it's being able to be in those moments. You're holding the space for your client's discovery and not losing out on the fact that I'm human and I have to also have integrity to myself and who I am, so that I also walk away from this coaching session intact. No, I don't feel like he was trying to get under my skin. He was just really ignorant in this particular realm, lack of knowledge. Right, thank you for that question. So now we'll talk about the awareness of others. Definitely empathy in the coaching session, having empathy for individuals and being able to validate their emotions. Because you know how sometimes they start off and they're telling you what the situation is, and they want to give you a lot of details, and they want to stay in the drama and not move on. Validating their emotion is a way to help them move on. So you give them some time and ask them, wow, how did that make you feel? And when they tell you, validate the emotion. And that will help them move on. Because if you don't, they don't know that that's what they're looking for. So they'll keep telling you that story again. So having that empathy, being able to validate, having also situational awareness. What's really going on in this environment? Because sometimes I just had a client yesterday, and she was wrongfully terminated. And she was trying to hold back her tears, and she kept talking, and she says, I'm sorry, I'm going to cry. And I said, there is no better place. Let's validate your tears. So really being in that space and knowing how to manage it, and in that space of service. We mentioned before that listening is one of the greatest gifts you can give another individual, because so few people take the time to listen. If we're telling someone a story, oh my goodness, I went to Hawaii and we had the best time, someone will jump in and say, I went there too. And that happens continuously throughout the day. Very rare are people in the space where they can really listen. Crying allows you to let go, cry away. Yeah. All right, let's continue. And then relationship management. Now I want you guys to tell me about relationship management in the coaching space. Which of these competencies will benefit you in the coaching space? You can unmute yourself and speak out.
This is Marsha. I would say trust, building trust.
Absolutely. It's
Because
important.
if you don't have that, that's the first thing our brains register when we meet somebody. And when we have this personal relationship, as we do when we're coaching, that trust is super important. If you don't have that, there's no point in working with the person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Yes, to be trusted, you need to communicate the right way and listen. O sea, communication is one of them.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
This is Sue again. I would say catalyzing change.
Okay. Can you expand, Sue? What made you choose that one?
Because when you're coaching, with someone, they're usually there because there's something that they want to do differently or to improve, and being able to energize that within them, I think is really critical.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
There isn't one that I can say above the others because I would need all of them.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. I
All right.
agree.
I'm gonna leave that there.
Yeah, I agree. And oftentimes one or two may stick out for an individual larger than the others listed. But they're all valuable. So as we take a snapshot of this, I want you guys to think about which competencies am I really good at? Because part of being a great coach is also knowing your strengths, your talents, your gifts. So which ones am I really good at? And then also look at the ones that you say to yourself, I want to improve upon this. Because there is always an opportunity for us to grow and develop. So thinking about which ones do you want to improve upon, and what are some things you can do to improve in that space. All right, let's continue. So we've discussed this, but thinking about self-management and all the things that go into play when we're in the coaching space. It's like making sure you give them enough time to tell them whatever it is that they're dealing with, and making sure that, when you want to tell that war story, or that you're not getting caught in or feeling like, oh, poor thing, how could they do that? So really managing yourself to make sure that you're holding the space for the good of the coachee. So you're managing yourself and holding that space appropriately. And thinking about that self-management piece, it's not telling your war stories. We know that. Not having the desire to fix. Even how we view the individual, they're not broken. Remember, coaching is about that this person has these wonderful gifts and talents inside of themselves that they haven't had the opportunity to discover. We're going to help them to discover those gifts and talents and move forward. So we talked about the awareness of others and how important it is. And I love this picture. I love the eye contact. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And I just absolutely love this picture, the engagement between the two. And then the relationship management, how important it is to manage the relationship. I will share with you, I was hired to coach an entire executive team. So 4 people on the team. And most of the issues they brought to one another or brought to their coaching session was about someone on that executive team. However, because coaching is so fabulous, I was able to manage those relationships and not even have a bias towards one over the other. So it really is a skill set. It can be done. If you remember what the goal of coaching is, if you remember what your role is, it really can be done. So I want to talk about how important the relationship is with self. So I used to have a boss, and one of her phrases was, the word intimacy means into me see. So really creating a space where we're looking inside of ourselves, but also looking inside of our clients. So Emotional intimacy, into-me. So as a coach, are you taking the time to really look inside of yourself and notice what emotions are you experiencing? What's driving those emotions? And what do you want to do with them? The other thing I will share, and remember that emotions aren't good or bad. They just are. The value of the emotion comes when you decide what you want to do with it. Emotions deliver a message to us. So if you ignore them, what's the value? If you listen and walk through the 4 quadrants, value increases. So a lot of times people will label emotions good or bad, or they try to stay away from quote unquote bad emotions. But emotions aren't good or bad, they just are. And it's what we do with them that determines the value of that emotion. I like that. Emotions are the all-sensing data telling you about your environment. Thank you for that. All right. I love this because this statement, it talks about that intimacy isn't purely physical. It's the act of connecting with someone so deeply, you feel like you can see into their soul. I think that's the greatest gift of coaching. A lot of my clients refer to me as Indiana Jones. And I ask them, well, why do you say that? And they say, because you unlock the heart and soul of those you sit with. So this is really what intimacy is all about. And then feeling safe enough to go there as a coach and making or providing that space for the coachee, your client, to feel that safety. All right, so we talked a lot about in the beginning about trusting our gut in the coaching space. So I can remember being in school and my instructors will say, the next question will just bubble up. And I used to say, well, what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? But it's so true. That next question will bubble up if you're comfortable enough in the space where you're listening to yourself on a regular basis. So if you have a meditation practice, so when I went to school for coaching, the first thing we had to do, get a meditation practice, and we visit the 3 domains. What am I thinking? What am I physically feeling? What am I emotionally feeling? Minimum was 10 minutes that we had to be in that space. When you develop that meditation practice, the next question really does bubble up. And so we've all learned even the saying with our coachee or the client, can I tell you what my instincts is telling me? Can I tell you what's coming up for me? And giving that client opportunity to say yes or no. This comes more readily when you have a relationship with yourself and you're listening to yourself. So now what I want to do is give you guys an opportunity to practice. Okay, so Jimmy is going to put you in breakout rooms, groups of 3. Okay, so once you go into the breakout room, you guys decide who will be the coach, who will be the coachee, and there will be one observer. Okay, now the coach and the coachee, the coach will absolutely coach the client or the coachee. As you are coaching, I want you to notice what emotions bubble up for you. And in the coaching session, what will you do with them? And then write them down. Then we'll come back together. The observer, you will observe from your perspective, what emotions do you notice? Okay. And then when your 10 minutes is up, you guys will have a 2-minute debrief in the breakout room, and then we'll come back here to the larger group and we'll have some discussion about your experience. Okay. Before you go into the breakout rooms, what questions do you have for me?
No, I'm not quite sure of the assignment when you're saying what emotions bubble up for you based upon what situation. I'm a little confused.
When you go into the breakout room, there will be a coach and a coachee.
Right.
When you listen to the story, if you're the coach or the coachee, when you listen to the story, what emotions come up for you?
What story? What story are we talking about? I'm still confused.
So if you're the coach,
Uh-huh.
your coachee is going to share a story with you,
Oh.
whatever they want to be coached on.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah.
Wasn't explained. Okay. I understand now.
Okay. Yeah. Any additional questions? Okay.
No questions, but I am getting a couple of comments in here. Some people are at work and they've got calls, so they can't jump into a room. So what I will ask is, if you are one of those people, then just don't go into the room when you are asked to go in, and we'll see how they all shake out, because right now I've got 3 in each room, but there's a couple that can't join in. So we'll try and reshuffle once everybody goes in. So if you can't join a room, just choose not to when the button comes up. And if you do end up getting dumped into a room, then just jump back out. Okay. I am going
Sounds
to
great.
open the rooms. Marsha, you're all good to go now? You understand?
I'm
Okay,
fine.
great.
Yeah. Hopefully you
All
won't
right.
have 2 no shows though in any room.
Well, we're going to find out how it goes. Hopefully,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they're both.
I
in the
trust
same
you
room.
completely, Jimmy. If anybody can figure it out, you can.
All right. So I've got a few people. I'm going to try. Well, hold on 1 second here. I'm going to see if I can get. I've got 3 that can't. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, now everybody's speaking up and saying they don't want to join. So you guys are not making this easy on me, are you, today? All right. I'm going to put you all in
Okay,
a room,
so-
and then I'll start shuffling
so-
you around afterwards. So just don't join. Okay. We've got some drivers too. Okay. I'm opening the rooms.
Wow. Okay, I'm good.
Well, that turned into a real challenge.
No, it's okay, because, for those of you who can't join the breakout room, think about a time when you were coaching someone. And what emotions did you experience during the coaching session?
Let's see. I'm going to move him to room 1. Oh, what just happened there? Let's see. Okay. And let's see. I'm just looking at the list here to see if I can get these. All right. The 2 of them are in there. All right. Ooh, Kim and Lillian. All right. Let's see. Andre. Okay. There's a full room. Good. Okay. I hate to break up anybody's, because everybody's,
No.
I've got 2s and 3s. So I'm going to leave it alone just because they probably already started. Is that fair?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, we don't have observers necessarily, but at least we've got 2s and 3s. So that works. Okay.
Mhm.
Good. Oh my gosh, Cathy, this is amazing.
Thank you. Returning our coaches. Let's see.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone's coming back.
I take it they're probably right in the middle of wrapping up. Get caught.
There it is. Everybody got bounced now.
All right. Hey, welcome back, you guys. Welcome back. All right. Let me see the hands of my coaches. You can raise your literal hand just so I can see. Throw your hands up in the air. Shake
No,
like
no,
you
no,
just
the
don't
coaches,
care.
I was the coachee.
Okay. So coaches, I want to talk to you first. Who would like to share? What emotions did they notice that came up for them? Patricia, go ahead.
So I noticed 2 emotions. One was a little bit of anxiety over the short period of time that we had.
Okay.
And the second one was frustration, because at the end, I felt that we were like about to catch something important, and we got pulled back to the main room. So I wish I could have had more time to work with Michael.
Okay. And what did you do with your anxiety?
With my anxiety, I just told myself, and I actually said it out loud, we have a short period, just 10 minutes, and it is what it is, and we'll get where we get.
Okay. Okay. And then what did you do with your frustration?
With my frustration, I didn't have time to do anything, because that's when we landed here back.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Patricia, for sharing that. And I also will share that as coaches, we do like to have a full session, but also think about there's great value in the practice. Even because I teach a leaders coach program, and I teach leaders how to step into a coach-like conversation in the moment. Sometimes those conversations are 12 minutes or less. And so the value doesn't always come at the end of the coaching session. The value can come with just 1 or 2 questions. So think about, the value of the activity and not always the finish line, because there's great value along the way.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Patricia.
I don't know if we did it correctly, because we didn't, I was not watching the time, and we didn't have time to listen from the observer or discuss. So we used all the time that we had in the conversation, really.
You're fine. You came back with your 2 emotions, and we were able to discuss. Thank you. Let me hear from another coach, please. Eric.
Thanks for this opportunity. I have to say, as I was going through this, I was looking at the wheel of emotions that you had up earlier, and I was amazed for the first time. I never noticed this before, how like 3/4 of the emotions are all on sort of the negative side of the spectrum, right? There's only one that's happy and a little bit of surprise, and the rest are all just fear, anger, disgust, and sadness. I never realized just how the overwhelming amount of emotions were on this sort of the downer side. So when I was looking for emotions to put in this, I was kind of at a loss, but I did come up with openness and eagerness and curiosity, which I think are things that we all try to bring to the conversation as a coach.
Thank you, Eric. So I will share, if it's anything you can take away about emotions, is they're not negative, they're not bad or good. Emotions just are. When we place negativity or badness to an emotion, a lot of times people will be reluctant to express how they feel if the feeling is going to be judged. So just keeping that in mind. Okay, so what did you do with your openness, Eric? You were feeling a sense of openness.
Yeah, and just as is, right? Be open, be curious, and just open it up. And the person I was working with, that was it. Open it up, let them, let it come out, let the issue reveal itself.
And what did you do with your eagerness?
Try to keep it in check a little bit and not go down that path and jump in and start, here's an idea and here's another idea.
So that was the self-management piece. Yeah,
self-management, I guess it was. Yeah.
A lot of times in a coaching session, someone will start off and automatically as a coach, you can see it. And so having the self-management, being able to manage the eagerness, because it may not be time to go there. Because we know where we're going, right? We know the steps we're supposed to take, right? But it may not be time. So we might have to, even though we have this great aha moment that we can see for the client, managing that eagerness for the benefit of the client is the self-management piece, being in service to others. So excellent that you managed that. Thank you, Eric.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Let me talk to one more coach.
I think for me, it was like anxiety, and so based on being put on the spot, like with whatever it was, 10 minutes. Once we got into it, it like I felt it flowed well, and then it became like really the curiosity factor, which I love about coaching, and just kind of listening. And there was also, for me, just the feeling of like empathizing and understanding what Susan was going through. So it was like there was these things that were coming to me as like we're going through the coaching process. But I'd say those two were probably the most prominent.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Wow.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to share something with you guys that I think might be helpful. Let me see. Okay. I wanted to share this with you because a lot of times as a coach, we think the value of coaching doesn't come until we're at the end of the session. That's not true. So there is what's called a universal coach-like approach. Those are individuals who walk through life looking for opportunities to have coach-like conversations or to provide enlightenment or to create a space for people to move through. 85% of conversations that people have throughout the day are in details, problem, drama. They stay here. If you think about news, details, problem, drama. When you ask a coaching question, doesn't have to be a coaching session. When you ask a coaching question, it all of a sudden elevates the conversation to thinking, feeling, vision, planning, taking action. So as coaches, if you have 10 minutes, if you have 12 minutes, doesn't mean there isn't any value to the space that you created. We don't always have to have an hour, 30 minutes, or 45 minutes. So when you're able to just step into someone's problem, drama, in detail and elevate that conversation, you're taking a coach-like approach to life. Any thoughts on this? I will say I got this from Paulette Rao. She was my mentor coach for my MCC. She's amazing. Any thoughts on this one?
Only that those that I refer to Paulette, that I told you so, that's all.
She is amazing. So yeah, she was very, very helpful. All right, let me talk to my coachees just for a moment. Coachees, let me see your hands. You were the coachee or the client. All right, what emotions bubbled up for you during the coaching session?
Hey, this is Lily. I worked with Meredith, and I have to say it raised my level of awareness a little bit. I was at a certain level, and then working with Meredith, it was like I had an aha moment. Thank you, Meredith. So that's, it was more of an anxiety feeling and a feeling of transition. And we all know transition can be very challenging and yet very adventurous at the same time. So I would have to say that it definitely raised my level of awareness.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
I will say, how many coaches, how many of you have a coach? Raise your hand if you have a coach. Okay, wonderful. I always encourage coaches to have a coach just from the standpoint of being in that space with your coach. And when they ask that question, and sometimes you feel like you've been punched in the stomach, you go, oh. I want to always remember what that feels like as I'm sitting with my clients. I want to allow them the time and space. I want to hold the space appropriately. And so as you continue to grow as a coach, always remember what that feels like. Let me speak to one more coachee. Let me see, one more coachee for the client. I have one more.
I can share.
Okay.
I started off feeling comfortable and excited to be coached. And then, of course, I picked something that was very relevant and has been really on my mind in the last few weeks. And so it brought up insecurity and anxiety and disappointment. I think just allowing for that to physically move through me in that short time that we had was helpful in that it created a release and just a little bit of freedom to think through and, you know, maybe kind of start again on the positive, on the helpful perspective that I want to have on this issue and this topic that I decided to bring up.
Any idea what you want to do with the disappointment?
I want to make it disappear.
And so if we were in a coaching session, I would ask you, what would it take for you to get to the point of helping that disappear? So giving yourself, and you know, as coaches, we live in a world of questions. So we can always do that for ourselves as well. And sometimes I'm experiencing an emotion and I'll allow myself to hold on to it. So my dad passed in February. I was going through a grief process. It got better, and then sometimes it gets worse. But I always ask myself, what do you want to do with this emotion? I said, today we're going to stay here. And so I pull up pictures of my dad, videos of my dad, and I allow myself to stay in that space for that day. So you always have choices. When we can name it and ask ourselves, what do you want to do with it? You become in charge of your emotions instead of your emotions being in charge of you. So you always have that choice. Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shakti.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So we're going to continue. Does anyone have a question or a thought before we move on?
I saw Susan's hand raised. Samakow, I'm not sure if you had a question or if you were just saying, yes, you have a coach. Maybe she stepped away. Okay.
No worries. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk to you guys about, which is really important as a coach and becoming masterful in your coaching, is having a healthy relationship with yourself. I cannot stress that enough, having that healthy relationship, because when you step into the coaching space and you are maybe at war with yourself, I facilitated this training about relationship with self, and many people will say, I don't know, I didn't even know that was a thing. When you think about holding the mirror up, as a coach, that's what we say. We hold the mirror up for our clients to look into the mirror. We have to do it for ourselves. So Steve Maraboli says that one of the most powerful relationships you will ever have is the relationship with yourself. And so knowing ourselves well, thinking about what's my value system, what's my passion, what's my natural gifts and talents, what drives me, So I happen to be an empath where I can literally feel what other people feel. I can intentionally bring that gift to my coaching space. But there are also things that I have to do to protect me when I go into a mall. I can pick up everybody's feelings. So that's why I share that relationship with yourself is so important. It helps you to become the best version of yourself. So thinking about as a coach and for your individual relationship, I want you guys to think about how often do you charge your cell phone? You recharge your cell phone. Most people charge it daily, sometimes twice a day. Their battery, my husband, if his battery is below 60%, you would think it was 6%. He's one of those people, it's always got to be charged. Mine is always, oh my goodness, can I borrow your charger? So people are different. But also think about how often do you recharge yourself? So even though my phone may never be charged, but I have a regular routine of recharging myself. It's important. So I don't know how many of you have heard of the how full is your bucket theory. And it's based on, as we move through our lives, each day we each have a bucket. And we can fill our bucket by doing things to fill our own bucket, but also filling other people's buckets by the way we interact with them. And when we do negative things, make negative comments about people, it actually drains our energy. Keeping a full bucket actually impacts your health, your happiness, your productivity, and relationships. It impacts the key relationship with yourself. So when you think about how do you show up on a regular basis, okay, thinking about, is my cup full? Is it half full? Is my cup empty? Based on where you are, think about how you'll show up in the coaching space. Are you showing up with a full cup, half cup, empty cup? And it's not a place of judgment, only you can answer that question. But think about, does it impact your ability to be the best coach you can be? You know, there's this statement that says there's more happiness in giving than in receiving. The caveat to that is that's only if you have something to give. How many of you have ever experienced, and you can show by a raise of hands, giving until you're empty and you have no more to give and you're still giving? What does that feel like? You can unmute yourself and speak out. What does that feel like when you're giving to the place where you have no more to give?
Terrible, exhausting.
Yeah, it's actually painful. Yeah, I can remember those days, about maybe 30 years ago. Yeah. So we have to replenish. So I like to use this analogy, if you will. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for me. So let's say this is me. So I have a regular routine of, in the morning, I'm an early riser, 5:30. I do Bible reading, I do prayer, meditation, journaling, and I exercise. So by the time my first appointment comes, this is me. Throughout the day, I'm coaching, I'm facilitating, I am putting together a plan for developing new business. I am doing workshops. I am training. Try to leave a little bit left for my husband. And then the next day, I start all over. That cup is empty. And I start my morning routine all over again, filling myself up. So I ask you guys to think about, what's your morning routine? Or it doesn't have to be in the morning. How do you recharge yourself? Because every day you're giving of yourself. So how are you showing up for your clients? Is it with a full cup? Or is it this cup? And what's the experience you create for yourself? So we're mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. It's good if we have a routine where we can fill up mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So when we think about how do we care for our emotional well-being, it could be therapy, it could be a coach, it could be journaling, talking with friends. There's a fabulous workbook. Also, how do you care for your physical well-being? Is it walking, running, a balanced diet, drinking plenty of water, and making the connection that when you feed yourself or when you drink water, making the connection that I'm taking care of my body, of me, I'm pouring into me. How do you care for your mental well-being? Is it creativity, reading, being a continuous learner, meditation, and self-compassion? And then how do you care for your spiritual well-being? So what nurtures your spirit? It could be religion, but it doesn't have to be. So these pictures, I love sitting in nature. I took these pictures. Just one was while my husband was driving. I'm intentional about spending time in nature, and it nurtures my spirit. So each one will have their own formula. So thinking about what's your formula for mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being. Those are the things that make a great coach. So I'd like to close out with this short video from Oprah Winfrey. She's being interviewed by Brene Brown. And Brene Brown asked her, what are you afraid of? What were you afraid of? Note what she has to say.
Who do you think you are that you can have? Who do you think you are that you can? So it's the who do you think you are?
And what is your response to that?
My response is, I used to fear hearing the term, who do you think you are? Or you must be pretty full of yourself.
Big for your britches.
Too big for your britches. Now I work at being full. I want to be so full, I am overflowing. So when you see me coming, it ought to make you proud. To borrow a line from Maya Angelou's Phenomenal Woman. When you see me coming, it ought to make you proud. And what you see is a woman so full, I'm overflowing with enough to share with everybody else. I'm going to own the fullness without ego, without arrogance, but with an amazing sense of gratitude that I've been born at a time where I am female on the planet, and I have the great pleasure and freedom to fill myself up.
Amen.
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 Amen. So I invite you as coaches, bring the best version of yourself, not just for your coachee or your client, but for yourself. You deserve it. Give yourself permission to engage in self-care every day. It really is part of emotional intelligence as well. And I'd like to leave you guys with some resources for creating a space to recharge. These are some of the things that I use. I've been journaling for 25 years, and I can't tell you what a joy it is to go back and read and be able to measure the growth. Also, I listen to a lot of TED Talks. I use the Calm app for meditation. I absolutely love it. And then I have a gratitude book, but a gratitude jar would work just as well. So I say to you all, emotional intelligence is the key to becoming a masterful coach, and the journey starts with self-care. taking care of who you are so that you become the best version of yourself in service to others. Thank you so much for your time today.
Ooh, ovation, a round of applause, everybody, for Cathy Mott. That was incredible. Wow, I feel full right now. Let me tell you, that cup is real tall.
I'm owning the fullness, owning the fullness. I'm not going to turn it down.
Don't turn it down. Don't turn it down. Thank you, guys. I'll take a few moments for questions. I think we have, maybe we can do one or two. Do we have time or no?
We've got a couple of minutes. Hey, I've got extra time. I got padding on my side. So if you've got a couple minutes, I know you've got an appointment after this. But if anyone has a question, that was fantastic. Like, I love this stuff. I could eat this up all day, but this was particularly special for me. So thank you, Cathy.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Cathy, I have a question. I'm wondering, earlier you shared the example of the 4 executives that you were coaching at the same time and how you had to, how you were successful at doing that for executives within the same organization. And you mentioned that it's possible when you know the goal of what coaching is. And so I'm wondering, how do you define the goal of what coaching is?
I love that question. I define the goal is, so one of my taglines is, I'm the life and leadership coach. I specialize in introducing people to themselves. My goal is to introduce people to themselves, help them discover their natural gifts and talents, fall in love with themselves, and lead from a place of authenticity, empathy, and compassion. That's my goal. That's how I would deem it. And the reason I love that is because someone introduced me to myself. And once I met myself, it was like, girl, we're gonna be friends. And everything changed for me after that.
Beautiful. Thank you, Cathy.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have a question?
Thank you, Shakti, for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of love in the chat right now.
Thank you, guys. It was so nice being with all of you.
Sorry, I'm sorry,
the best
Cathy.
profession in the world.
I think perhaps one more question was coming through. Did Shari? Oh, she was just saying thank you. I think.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay. Cathy, thank you so much for saying yes and for sharing the seat at the table with us so that we could glean from your wisdom. And I do hope that there was a return in the future somewhere, sometime soon, for 2023, maybe.
Absolutely.
Right now. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we hope to see you later this evening with our other Cathy. Today, the day of Cathys.